The first contact. In the year 2325, humanity had spread across the galaxy. Ships darted between the stars, bringing life and commerce to distant worlds. One of these ships was the Resolute, a flagship of the United Earth Federation. Captain Sarah Hayes stood on the bridge, gazing out at the vastness of space. Her crew worked diligently around her, each person focused on their tasks. "Captain, we've received a distress signal," reported Lucas, the ship's tech genius. His eyes were glued to the console as numbers and letters flashed across the screen. "It's coming from a Zorax ship. They're under attack." The Zorax were known for their fierce nature. They were a proud alien race, and they usually did not seek help. This news surprised Sarah. "Are they in immediate danger?" she asked, her voice steady. "They're being overwhelmed by a hostile fleet," Lucas replied. "It looks like a group of Ravagers. If we don't act quickly, they won't last much longer." Sarah felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The Ravagers were notorious space pirates, and their ruthless tactics were feared throughout the galaxy. The crew exchanged worried glances, knowing that intervening could put them in serious danger. "Do we have enough firepower?" Ava, the ship's combat specialist, asked as she checked her weaponry. "Enough to defend ourselves, but I can't guarantee we can save them," Sarah said. She paused for a moment, weighing her options. She remembered the countless times her crew had faced danger and overcome it. "We have to help them," she finally decided. "Set a course for their coordinates." As the Resolute changed course, excitement mixed with tension filled the air. The crew prepared for battle, each member knowing their role. Sarah felt a sense of determination wash over her. They were not just going to watch as a ship, alien or not, was destroyed. "Captain, we're entering the Zorax ship's location," Lucas called out. The massive starship appeared on their screens, damaged and struggling against a swarm of enemy fighters. Bright flashes of light erupted as weapons fired, and the Zorax ship fought valiantly. "Bring us alongside their ship," Sarah commanded. "Let's offer them cover." The crew worked in perfect sync, their training evident in their swift actions. The Resolute maneuvered smoothly, placing itself between the Zorax ship and the Ravagers. Sarah activated the ship's weapons systems, her heart racing. "Prepare to fire." Ava grinned, ready for action. "Let's show them what humans can do." With a loud boom, the ship's cannons roared to life, firing shots at the approaching enemy fighters. The bright beams of energy cut through space, hitting their targets with precision. The Ravagers were taken by surprise, their focus shifting to the new threat. "Captain, we're engaging," Lucas shouted, his fingers flying over the controls as he coordinated their defense. The Zorax ship, inspired by the sudden support, fought back with renewed strength. "Keep firing," Sarah ordered. "We can't let them overwhelm us." She watched as their shots hit the enemy ships, sending them spiraling into the void. It was a chaotic scene, but Sarah felt a surge of pride for her crew. They were fighting with everything they had. Minutes felt like hours as the battle raged on. One by one, the Ravager ships fell to their firepower. The Zorax ship began to regain its footing, and together they pushed back against their common enemy. Suddenly, a Ravager ship managed to break through their defenses and targeted the Resolute. Alarms blared on the bridge as the crew braced for impact. Sarah's heart raced. "Evasive maneuvers," she shouted. Lucas quickly shifted their course, and the ship swerved just in time. The Ravager's weapon fire missed by inches, exploding behind them. "That was too close," Ava exclaimed, her adrenaline pumping. "Keep focusing on the enemy," Sarah shouted. They could not afford any mistakes now. They had to protect each other. Finally, after a fierce exchange of fire, the last Ravager ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Silence filled the bridge for a moment as the crew processed what had just happened. They had won the battle. "Status report," Sarah demanded, regaining her composure. "The Zorax ship is damaged but intact," Lucas replied. "They're hailing us." Sarah took a deep breath, excitement bubbling inside her. "Put them on screen," she instructed. The view shifted, revealing a Zorax commander. His face was rugged and marked by battle, but his eyes shone with gratitude. "Human ship, thank you for your assistance. We would have perished without you." Sarah felt a rush of relief. "We acted because it was the right thing to do. We are glad to help." Commander Excel nodded, his expression serious. "You have proven that not all humans are our enemies. Perhaps there is hope for a new alliance." As the two ships floated side by side, a sense of camaraderie began to form. Sarah knew that this was only the beginning of something greater. They had saved each other today, and she felt a strong bond forming between their two races. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. "Prepare to dock with the Zorax ship," Sarah commanded, excitement flooding her heart. She was ready to learn from them, to understand their ways, and to forge a new future together. As the ships moved closer, she couldn't help but smile, knowing that the first contact had opened a new chapter in their stories. In the vastness of space, where danger lurked around every corner, hope began to blossom. A fragile alliance. After the fierce battle, the Resolute and the Zorax ship, named the Warbringer, floated side by side in the silence of space. Sarah stood on the bridge, her heart racing with anticipation. This moment felt significant. An alliance between humanity and the Zorax could change everything. "Captain, we've established a secure link with the Zorax," Lucas announced, his fingers dancing over the controls. "They're ready to speak with us again." "Put them on screen," Sarah instructed, straightening her posture. The image of Commander Excel appeared once more. The Zorax looked grateful but still wary, his fierce eyes studying her intently. "Captain Hayes," Excel began, his voice deep and resonant, "you have saved my crew and my ship. For this, I owe you a debt of honor. I wish to discuss what comes next." Sarah nodded, feeling a wave of responsibility wash over her. "Thank you, Commander. We want to understand each other better. Our worlds are very different, but perhaps we can learn from one another." Zel's expression softened slightly. "You are right. We Zorax are proud warriors, but we are not without reason. Your actions today have shown that humans can be allies. However, trust takes time, and I must be cautious." "I understand," Sarah replied earnestly. "We can start small. Let's share knowledge about our technologies and cultures. This can be the foundation of our alliance." Commander Excel considered her words. "Very well. We shall exchange data and learn about each other. But know this, trust is earned through actions, not words." "Agreed," Sarah said, her heart pounding with determination. "We will prove ourselves." After the meeting, Sarah gathered her crew in the ship's briefing room. Excitement buzzed in the air as they discussed their next steps. Ava leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. "This is our chance to show the galaxy who we are," she exclaimed. "If we can make allies out here, we can really change things." Lucas, always the voice of caution, interjected. "We need to be careful, though. The Zorax may not be as unified as they seem. Their past with other races has not been easy." "I know, Lucas," Sarah replied, her expression serious. "But we need to take risks if we want to make progress. This alliance could mean protection for humanity." As the crew continued to brainstorm, Sarah felt a swell of hope. They were no longer isolated in the universe. They had allies now, and she could feel the momentum building. After a few hours, they began the data exchange with the Warbringer. The Zorax technology was advanced, filled with innovations that fascinated Sarah and her crew. They marveled at the designs of Zorax ships and their unique weapon systems. "Look at this energy shield technology," Lucas exclaimed, eyes wide as he analyzed the data. "We could adapt this for our own ships. It would give us a significant advantage in battles." "Let's integrate what we can," Sarah said, her mind racing with ideas. "This will help us strengthen our defenses and build a more powerful fleet." Meanwhile, Commander Excel was also reviewing the data from the Resolute. He watched as the human crew operated with precision and teamwork. It intrigued him how humans valued collaboration, even under pressure. Later, Sarah received a message from Cell requesting a meeting aboard the Warbringer. She knew this was a crucial moment. She gathered her trusted officers, Ava and Lucas, to accompany her. As they docked with the Zorax ship, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was the first time she would step onto an alien ship, and she wondered what awaited them. The airlock hissed open, revealing a darkened corridor. The interior was unlike anything she had ever seen, filled with metallic surfaces and glowing panels. "Stay close," she whispered to Ava and Lucas as they stepped inside. They were led by Zorax soldiers to a grand chamber where Commander Excel awaited them. The room was adorned with intricate carvings and symbols that depicted Zorax history. "Welcome, Captain Hayes and your officers," Cell said, his tone formal yet warm. "This is where we honor our victories and remember our fallen. It is a sacred place for my people." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "Thank you for allowing us to visit. It's an honor to see your culture." Zell gestured for them to take a seat at a round table, covered with holographic displays. "I wish to discuss how we can further strengthen our alliance. Our two races have much to learn from each other." As they talked, Sarah felt a bond growing. They shared stories of their worlds, their battles, and their hopes for the future. Zell spoke passionately about the Zorax values of honor and loyalty, while Sarah shared humanity's resilience and innovation. After hours of discussion, Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment. They had laid the groundwork for a strong alliance, one that could withstand the challenges of the galaxy. "Together, we can face any threat," Cell concluded, his fierce eyes softening with trust. "I believe this is the beginning of a great partnership." As they departed the Warbringer, Sarah turned to Ava and Lucas, her heart swelling with pride. "We did it. We've taken the first steps towards a new era." Ava smiled brightly. "This is just the start. Imagine what we can achieve together." With hope in their hearts, they returned to the Resolute, ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. The universe was vast and filled with uncertainties, but now humanity had allies. And together they were ready to make their mark on the stars. Shadows of doubt. As days passed aboard the Resolute, the excitement of the newly forged alliance with the Zorax began to settle into the routine of space travel. Sarah, Lucas, and Ava worked tirelessly to integrate Zorax technology into their systems, but unease lurked beneath the surface. Some crew members were skeptical of their new allies, questioning their motives and loyalty. In the crew quarters, Sarah overheard a conversation between two technicians, Mike and Jenna. "I don't trust those Zorax," Mike said, shaking his head. "What if they're just playing nice until they can strike?" Jenna nodded, her expression worried. "Yeah, I get that. They might be biding their time, waiting for the right moment to betray us." Sarah felt a twinge of frustration. She understood their concerns but wished they could see the bigger picture. The alliance was not just about survival. It was about cooperation, understanding, and growth. Later that day, she called an all-hands meeting in the main chamber to address the crew's concerns directly. As they gathered, Sarah noticed the apprehension on their faces. Lucas and Ava stood by her side, ready to support her. "Thank you all for coming," Sarah began, her voice steady. "I know there are concerns about our alliance with the Zorax. It's natural to feel uncertain, especially after what we faced together. But we have to remember why we sought this partnership in the first place." "Captain, what if they turn on us?" a crew member shouted from the back. "We don't really know them." "I understand your fear," Sarah replied, her heart pounding. "But I believe we've already shown that we can trust each other. We've shared knowledge and worked side by side. Trust takes time, and we must be willing to give it a chance." Lucas chimed in. "The Zorax are different, but that doesn't mean they're our enemies. They saved our lives. They see value in this alliance just as we do." Eva added, "We need to focus on what we can achieve together. We have the opportunity to learn from one another and grow stronger as a result. As the discussion continued, Sarah could see the skepticism in some eyes, but a few were starting to nod in agreement. The debate sparked a mix of fear and hope. Eventually, Sarah urged them to come together and share their ideas on how to strengthen their collaboration with the Zorax. The crew returned to their duties with a newfound sense of purpose. They continued to exchange knowledge and technology, but beneath the surface, tension lingered. Some crew members remained wary, whispering doubts among themselves. One evening, while Sarah was on the bridge, she received an urgent message from Commander Excel. "Captain Hayes," his voice echoed through the comms, "we have detected an approaching ship on our sensors. Its intentions are unknown." "What kind of ship?" Sarah asked, her heart racing. "It appears to be a cruiser from the Draken Empire." Cell replied, tension evident in his tone. "They have a history of hostility toward our people and yours." Sarah exchanged glances with Lucas and Ava. The Draken Empire was notorious for its ruthless tactics and aggressive expansion. "We need to prepare," Sarah said decisively. "Let's arm our weapons and raise our shields. I'll contact the crew and get them ready for anything." As the crew scrambled to their stations, Sarah felt a mixture of fear and determination. This could be a critical moment for their alliance. If they could stand together against the Draken, it would strengthen their bond and prove their trustworthiness to one another. Lucas monitored the ship's systems, his fingers flying across the controls. "Shields are up and weapons are primed," he announced. "We're ready, Captain." "Maintain communication with the Zorax," Sarah ordered. "We need to coordinate our response." Minutes later, the Draken cruiser emerged from the darkness of space, its imposing silhouette casting a shadow over the Resolute. It was a massive ship, armed to the teeth and ready for battle. Sarah's heart raced as she stared at the view screen. "Captain, they are hailing us," Lucas reported, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. On screen, Sarah commanded, preparing for a confrontation. The image of a Draken officer appeared, his face stern and imposing. "Humans and Zorax," he said, his voice cold. "You have trespassed into our territory. Prepare to surrender or face annihilation." Sarah clenched her fists, feeling the weight of the moment. "We will not surrender. We stand united. You will leave now, or we will fight." The Draken officer sneered, clearly underestimating the resolve of both the humans and Zorax. "Foolish creatures, you will regret this decision." As the transmission ended, Cell's voice crackled through the comms. "We must fight together, Captain. I will engage their ship from the flank while you take the lead." "Let's show them what we can do," Sarah replied, her spirit ignited. With a deep breath, she issued the orders. "All hands, prepare for battle. Engage the enemy." The crew sprang into action, adrenaline pumping through their veins. The Resolute and the Warbringer moved as one, their combined forces ready to defend against the Draken threat. As they approached the enemy ship, Sarah's heart raced. This was the moment they had prepared for, a chance to prove their strength and unity. She could only hope that their combined efforts would be enough to repel the Draken and solidify their alliance. With weapons armed and shields raised, they charged into the fray, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in the stars. Clash of forces. The atmosphere aboard the Resolute crackled with tension as the crew prepared for battle. The sight of the looming Draken cruiser sent a shiver down Sarah's spine, but she steeled herself, focusing on the task at hand. They had to fight not just for their survival, but to affirm their alliance with the Zorax. "Captain, the Draken ship is firing its weapons," Lucas shouted, urgency lacing his voice. "Evasive maneuvers," Sarah commanded. The ship shuddered as they narrowly avoided the incoming blasts. "Return fire. Target their weapon systems." "Firing," Lucas announced, his fingers dancing over the controls. Bright beams of energy erupted from the Resolute, striking the Draken cruiser. The impact reverberated through the ship, a satisfying jolt that momentarily lifted the crew's spirits. They could fight back. But as the battle continued, Sarah noticed the Draken ship's relentless advance. It was a formidable foe, and they needed more than firepower to win. Cell, how are the Zorax forces holding up? Sarah asked through the comms. We're taking heavy fire, Cell replied, his voice strained. But we are holding our ground. I will flank them on their starboard side. Good. We need to divide their fire. Keep pushing forward, Sarah urged, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. As the battle raged on, the two ships maneuvered around one another, trading shots like a deadly dance. Sarah felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins, pushing her to think quickly and act decisively. Captain, I've detected a weakness in their shields, Lucas said, his eyes narrowing at the sensor readings. If we can hit them at the right angle, we might breach their defenses. Let's do it, Sarah said, determination in her tone. Prepare to target their shield generators. Ava, give me a trajectory. Ava focused on her console, her brow furrowed with concentration. If we adjust our angle by 20 degrees and fire on my mark, we should be able to exploit the weakness. Understood. Lucas, keep us steady, Sarah instructed, her heart racing as they maneuvered into position. The Zorax ship continued to engage the Draken cruiser, drawing its fire and creating openings for the Resolute. Sarah could see the Zorax warriors working alongside her crew, their determination clear. This was their chance to prove that humans and Zorax could fight as one. Ready, Ava called out, her finger hovering over the firing button. Now, Sarah shouted. Bright beams of energy erupted from the Resolute, striking the Draken cruiser precisely where they aimed. The enemy shields flickered, then collapsed under the concentrated assault. The Draken ship staggered, smoke and sparks flying from the breach. Direct hit, Lucas cheered. Their shields are down. Keep firing, Sarah ordered, her heart racing with adrenaline. They had to keep the pressure on before the Draken could regroup. The Zorax forces seized the opportunity, launching a barrage of their own. The two ships worked in harmony, a beautiful and terrifying display of unity against a common enemy. The Draken cruiser, now reeling from the combined fire, struggled to maintain its position. But just as victory seemed within reach, the tide of battle shifted. Captain, Lucas exclaimed, his voice laced with alarm. They're deploying smaller ships. Draken fighters. Sarah's eyes widened, braced for impact. Prepare for boarding parties. She felt a pang of anxiety. This was no longer just a ship-to-ship battle. The fight would come to them. As the small fighters swarmed like angry hornets, the crew sprang into action, manned the turrets. Protect our ship, Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The crew raced to their stations, grabbing weapons and taking positions at the ship's defenses. The bridge buzzed with activity as the crew worked together to fend off the incoming fighters. The Zorax warriors, fierce and determined, joined them in the fight. Enemy fighters on our starboard, Lucas shouted, directing fire toward the closest threat. They're trying to flank us. Redirect our shields to reinforce that side, Sarah ordered, her mind racing. They had to work together, or they wouldn't survive this. Amidst the cacophony of alarms and energy blasts, Sarah spotted a group of Zorax warriors preparing to board the Resolute. They were ready to join the fight up close and personal. She admired their bravery, but also felt a surge of protectiveness. Hold your positions, she yelled, trying to keep the crew focused. We'll repel them together. The fighters swooped in, lasers firing in all directions. The bridge felt like a storm, chaos swirling around them. But Sarah kept her eyes fixed on the battle, determined to protect her ship and crew. Incoming boarding craft, Ava shouted, her face tense. They're trying to breach our hull. Prepare for close quarters combat, Sarah yelled, adrenaline flooding her veins. We need to hold them off. As the Draken fighters closed in, the battle became frantic. The crew defended their ship with everything they had, their bravery shining through the chaos. Each time an enemy ship was shot down, a cheer would erupt, but it was short-lived as more continued to swarm in. Finally, The boarding craft slammed into the hull, and the sound of metal on metal echoed through the corridors. The crew braced themselves for the fight of their lives. "Let's show them what we're made of." Sarah rallied her crew, adrenaline surging through her. "We fight together." The sound of blaster fire and the clash of weapons filled the air as they prepared to confront the incoming Draken invaders. This battle would define their unity and their resolve. Sarah knew that whether they succeeded or failed, they would fight together, humans and Zorax, side by side, ready to defend their future. The borders. The metallic clang reverberated throughout the Resolute, echoing like a thunderclap as the Draken boarding craft crashed into their hull. Sarah's heart raced. The enemy was inside, and they needed to act quickly. "Everyone, to your positions," she shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. She could see the fear and determination in her crew's eyes. This was a fight for their survival, and they were ready to give everything. Lucas sprinted to the armory, grabbing blasters and ammunition, while Ava monitored the ship's systems, ensuring that the defensive shields remained operational. The Zorax warriors, fierce and unyielding, formed a line behind Sarah, ready to protect their newfound allies. "Hold the line," Sarah yelled, brandishing her blaster. She had never been in a hand-to-hand combat situation, but she would not let fear overcome her. They were a team now, united against a common enemy. "We fight together." As the boarding craft's hatch opened with a hiss, a group of Draken soldiers poured through, weapons raised and snarls on their lips. Sarah's adrenaline surged as she aimed her blaster, her heart pounding in her chest. "Fire," Sarah commanded. The crew unleashed a volley of blaster fire, striking the incoming Draken. Bright beams of energy illuminated the corridor, momentarily blinding the enemies. Several Draken soldiers fell, their bodies hitting the floor with a heavy thud. "Keep firing," Lucas shouted, taking aim and expertly picking off enemy combatants. But the Draken were relentless, pushing forward despite their losses. They were larger and stronger, their dark scales glistening ominously in the dim light of the ship's interior. A fierce growl echoed through the corridor as one Draken soldier lunged forward, brandishing a wicked-looking blade. "Get back," Sarah yelled, firing her blaster at the attacker. The shot hit true, and the Draken soldier stumbled, allowing Sarah and her crew to regroup. "Form a defensive line," Ava shouted, her voice steadied despite the chaos. The crew moved quickly, forming a barrier to protect the bridge and the critical areas of the ship. Zorax warriors stood shoulder to shoulder with humans, their claws poised to strike at any Draken that got too close. As the skirmish continued, Sarah noticed one of the Zorax warriors, a fierce fighter named Tikarn, charging forward, leading the charge against the remaining Draken. His roars filled the air as he swung his massive weapon, cutting through enemies with precision. "Follow Tikarn," Sarah commanded, feeling the surge of courage ripple through her crew. They rallied behind their fearless allies, pushing forward into the fray. The corridor became a battleground, blaster fire and shouts mixing in a cacophony of chaos. Each time a Draken fell, a cheer erupted from the crew, filling them with renewed determination. The unity between the humans and Zorax strengthened, and together they pressed on, reclaiming their ship inch by inch. But then, a piercing alarm blared throughout the Resolute. Intruders detected in the engine room. Ava called out, panic evident in her voice. "They're trying to sabotage the ship." "Not on my watch," Sarah yelled, her heart pounding. "We need to split our forces. Ava, you and Lucas head to the engine room. The rest of us will hold this corridor." Ava nodded, her expression determined. "We'll stop them." "Let's go," Lucas added, sprinting after Ava as they raced to protect the ship's core. Sarah turned to the remaining crew and Zorax warriors, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We can't let them reach the engine room. Hold the line." The remaining Draken soldiers continued to press forward, but with Tikarn leading the charge, they fought valiantly. Sarah could see the fierce determination in her allies' eyes, the unity between species shining through the chaos. Push forward. We can't let them gain any ground, Sarah shouted, feeling the fire of battle igniting her spirit. As they pushed back the enemy forces, Sarah's mind raced. They had to finish this fight quickly. She glanced toward the engine room, hoping that Ava and Lucas would reach it in time. In the thick of battle, a massive Draken soldier caught her attention. He was larger than the others, with a fierce growl that made the hairs on Sarah's neck stand on end. He charged towards her, eyes filled with rage. "Get back," she shouted, firing her blaster. The shot hit him squarely in the chest, but he barely flinched. He continued forward, undeterred, swinging a heavy weapon that could easily crush anyone in its path. "Sarah," Tikarn shouted, rushing to her side. "We need to take him down together." "On 3. Sarah replied, readying herself. 1, 2, 3. They both lunged at the Draken, dodging his powerful swings as they coordinated their attack. Tikarn swung his weapon low while Sarah aimed for the Draken's head. They worked in perfect sync, landing hits that finally brought the massive soldier down. "Good work," Tikarn roared, breathing heavily but filled with exhilaration. "Let's keep moving," Sarah urged, her heart racing as they pressed on. Meanwhile, in the engine room, Ava and Lucas had reached their destination. They found a group of Draken soldiers attempting to disable the ship's core. Ava quickly pulled out her blaster, her expression fierce. "Not today," she shouted, opening fire on the intruders. Lucas joined her, and together they fought back against the attackers, determined to protect their ship at all costs. The engine room was alive with energy, lights flashing as they engaged in the fight for their lives. The battle raged on, but Sarah's resolve remained strong. They would not let the Draken take their ship. As they fought side by side, she realized this was more than just a battle for survival. It was a fight to prove that humanity and Zorax could stand united against any foe. With each fallen Draken, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility lift slightly. They would win this battle together, or they would fall together, but either way they would fight until the end. The turning tide. The battle inside the Resolute raged on, and Sarah could feel the tension in the air. Each moment was filled with the sound of blaster fire and the cries of her crew and the Zorax warriors as they fought against the relentless Draken invaders. "Push forward," Sarah shouted, rallying her team. They had managed to hold their ground so far, but the Draken were many, and their numbers seemed to multiply with every passing moment. Karn was at her side, fighting valiantly, his powerful swings taking down enemy soldiers left and right. "We cannot let them reach the command center," he roared, his fierce eyes focused on the enemy ahead. Just then, a loud crash reverberated through the corridor as a group of Draken soldiers smashed through the door, their snarls echoing in the confined space. Sarah felt a jolt of fear shoot through her as they advanced, weapons raised and ready to fire. "Stand firm," Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the growing dread. "We've come too far to back down now." The crew moved as one, forming a solid line to hold back the advancing Draken. Sarah fired her blaster again and again, each shot hitting its mark and bringing down another enemy. She could see the resolve in her crew's eyes, the determination to protect their ship and their new allies driving them forward. "Keep moving," Tikarn shouted, breaking through the line and charging at the nearest Draken. He fought like a whirlwind, his claws and fangs a blur as he took down soldiers with brutal efficiency. Sarah followed closely, her heart pounding as they pushed deeper into the fray. Meanwhile, in the engine room, Ava and Lucas were locked in a fierce struggle against a group of Draken soldiers who had breached their defenses. The engine room was a chaotic mess of sparks and flashing lights, a testament to the battle being fought for the heart of the ship. "Cover me," Ava yelled, diving behind a console to gain a better vantage point. She aimed her blaster at the nearest Draken, her hand steady. "I need to access the systems to reroute power." "I'll hold them off," Lucas shouted back, taking position near the entrance to the engine room. He unleashed a flurry of shots at the incoming Draken, trying to keep them at bay. Ava's fingers flew over the controls, her mind racing as she worked to regain control of the ship's systems. "I can't believe this is happening," she muttered, focusing intently on her task. Come on, come on." Outside, Sarah and T-Karn had pushed the Draken back, but they could still hear the sounds of battle from the engine room. "We have to support Ava and Lucas," Sarah shouted, her heart racing as she glanced back toward the source of the chaos. "We can't leave our post," T-Karn replied, blocking a blow from a Draken soldier. "If we do, they'll overwhelm us. But if we don't help them, we'll lose the engine room," Sarah insisted, determination flooding her veins. "We need to find a way to turn the tide." Just as she finished her sentence, a loud explosion rocked the ship, sending vibrations through the floor. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered ominously. "What was that?" T-Karn asked, glancing toward the engine room. "I don't know, but we can't wait," Sarah replied, feeling the urgency settle in her chest. "We need to move now." With that, Sarah charged back toward the engine room, T-Karn following closely behind. They fought their way through the corridor, blasting their way past the last few remaining Draken soldiers who tried to block their path. Each shot fired echoed in the narrow passage, a reminder of the battle they were fighting. As they entered the engine room, the sight that met them was chaotic. Ava and Lucas were still engaged in combat, but the Draken had begun to surround them. The energy levels fluctuated wildly, sparks flying from the exposed circuits. "Hold on," Sarah shouted, raising her blaster. "We're here." The crew rallied, firing at the surrounding Draken soldiers. With renewed strength, they pushed back against the tide, each member of the crew working in perfect unison. "Get to the systems, Ava," Lucas shouted, taking aim at the nearest Draken. "We'll cover you." "I'm almost there," Ava called back, her eyes focused on the console. "Just a little longer." The fight was fierce, and Sarah felt her muscles straining as she dodged and fired. T-Karn fought beside her, his claws striking down enemies with lethal precision. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Ava shouted, "I'm in." Rerouting power now. The lights flickered back to life, and the ship's systems hummed with renewed energy. The engine room stabilized, and Sarah could see the tide of battle beginning to turn. "Yes, keep it up, Ava," Sarah cheered, her heart soaring with hope. As the crew continued to fight off the remaining Draken, Sarah felt a surge of energy course through her. They could win this battle. Together, they were unstoppable. "Now, push them back," Sarah yelled, feeling the momentum shift in their favor. With renewed vigor, they surged forward, driving the Draken toward the exit. With each fallen soldier, their hope grew stronger. Sarah could see it in the eyes of her crew and the Zorax warriors fighting alongside them. They were no longer just a group of disparate fighters. They had become a unified force, ready to reclaim their ship. As they pressed on, Sarah's determination burned brighter. They would reclaim the Resolute, and together, they would emerge victorious. With the tide turning in their favor, they prepared for the final push against the Draken invaders. The final stand. The air was thick with tension as Sarah and her crew prepared for the final confrontation against the remaining Draken forces. The echoes of blaster fire still reverberated through the corridors of the Resolute, but a new determination had taken hold. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting to reclaim their home. "All right, team," Sarah shouted, gathering everyone in a huddle. "We've pushed them back, but they're not done yet. We need to stick together and take the fight to them. Are you ready?" A chorus of affirmations rang out, bolstering her confidence. T-Karn stood tall beside her, his fierce expression promising strength and resolve. "Let's show them what humanity and the Zorax can do together." With renewed spirit, Sarah led the charge down the corridor. They moved quickly, navigating the familiar halls of their ship, now transformed into a battleground. The blaring alarms had become a haunting symphony, each beep urging them forward. As they approached the main hangar, the scene before them was chaotic. Draken soldiers swarmed the area, trying to commandeer the small ships that would allow them to escape the fight. But Sarah knew they had to take control of the hangar. It was the key to securing their victory. "We need to flank them," Lucas shouted, pointing toward an access door on the side. "If we can catch them off guard, we can take them down one by one." "Good thinking, Lucas," Sarah replied. "Let's do it." They split into two teams. Sarah, Tikarn, and Ava would take the left flank, while Lucas and a few Zorax warriors would approach from the right. Sarah felt her heart racing as they crept closer to the hangar door. The anticipation was palpable. "On my mark," Sarah whispered, her eyes fixed on the Draken soldiers. She counted down silently in her mind, feeling the tension build. 3, 2, 1, now. At her command, both teams sprang into action. Blasters fired in unison, and chaos erupted as they launched their surprise attack. The Draken soldiers were caught off guard, their ranks breaking as they tried to react. "Keep pushing," Tikarn roared, slicing through the nearest enemy with his claws. The Zorax warriors followed suit, their powerful forms taking down the Draken with swift, lethal strikes. "Cover me. I'm going for the control panel," Ava yelled, darting toward the console that controlled the hangar's defense systems. "Go, Ava. We'll keep them busy," Sarah shouted, feeling the adrenaline surge through her veins. Sarah focused on the enemies in front of her, firing her blaster with precision. Each shot hit its mark, and she could see the tide of the battle turning further in their favor. She worked alongside Tikarn, the two of them a well-oiled machine, moving in sync as they fought off the remaining Draken soldiers. As Ava reached the control panel, she began to type furiously, her fingers flying over the keys. "I'm activating the hangar shields," she called out. "This will cut off their escape routes." The lights flickered as the shields powered up, creating a barrier that sealed off the hangar from the outside. The Draken soldiers began to realize their situation, panic setting in as they saw their escape cut off. "Now they're trapped," Lucas shouted, firing from the right flank. "Let's finish this." With the hangar now secured, the remaining Draken forces found themselves outnumbered and cornered. Sarah felt a surge of exhilaration as they pressed the attack. The confidence of her crew was contagious, and she could see the fear in the eyes of their enemies. "Forward. Show them no mercy," Sarah commanded, pushing into the fray with newfound determination. As they closed in, the Draken soldiers fought fiercely, but it was clear their resolve was crumbling. Sarah could feel the victory within her grasp. "We're almost there," she shouted, urging her team forward. Just as they were about to land the final blow, a towering Draken commander emerged from the shadows, a formidable figure clad in dark armor. He let out a ferocious roar that echoed through the hangar. "Fools," he bellowed. "You think you can defeat me?" Sarah felt her heart pound in her chest. This was the leader of the Draken forces, and he was clearly here to make a last stand. "Everyone, focus on him," she shouted, rallying her crew. "We have to take him down." The battle intensified as they surrounded the commander. He swung his massive weapon with brute force, knocking aside anything in his path. Tikarn charged in, but the commander's strength was overwhelming. Sarah fired her blaster, trying to find an opening. "Tikarn, fall back," she yelled. "We need a plan." The commander laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. "You think you can outsmart me? I will crush you." But Sarah wasn't about to give up. "Ava, can you disable his armor?" she shouted over the noise. "I'll try," Ava replied, taking aim. She fired at the commander's exposed circuits, hitting them with precision. The commander staggered, momentarily disoriented. "Now, push," Sarah yelled, and the crew charged together. Tikarn lunged forward, his claws striking true, while Lucas and the Zorax warriors joined the fray, creating a formidable force. Together, they fought with all their strength, coordinating their attacks. With each strike, the commander faltered, his arrogance crumbling under their united front. Finally, with one last combined attack, they knocked him to the ground. The hangar echoed with silence as the commander fell, defeated. Victory! T-Karn bellowed, raising his claws in triumph. The crew cheered, the sound of their victory ringing through the air. Sarah felt a rush of pride wash over her. They had done it. Against all odds, they had fought and reclaimed their ship. As the last of the Draken soldiers were captured or fled, Sarah took a moment to catch her breath. The battle was over, and their victory was hard-earned. She turned to her crew, a smile spreading across her face. "We did it, everyone. We stood together, and we won." The cheers erupted again, and Sarah couldn't help but join in the celebration. Together, they had faced down the storm and emerged victorious. They were not just a crew. They were a family, bound together by their shared experiences and triumphs. As the reality of their victory set in, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. With their ship secured and the threat of the Draken diminished, they could now set their sights on a brighter future, a future they would face together.